So, Joyce, what I have for us today is kind of an assortment, and I tried to respect your dietary needs and whatnot. So we have some strawberry scones here. They're strawberry and white chocolate. I cut down on the sugar a little bit, but there is sugar in them. And then I have some of my fresh-made sourdough that I've been making for a number of years.
It might be your specialty.
That is kind of my specialty. And then I've got a couple different butters here too. I've got a plain butter that has been whipped up. And then I've got some butter that I mixed some honey in also.
Oh.
So yeah, do you have a preference which one you'd like to start with?
Well, I think I'll just have a little slice of
Okay,
that.
I'll slice you off a chunk here.
Don't make too big.
Okay, I'll do a nice.
Oh, that looks nice. I haven't had homemade bread since my grandma passed away, I guess. I don't think I've ever had honey butter, but it sounds good to me.
Here, I'll butter it up for you. And what do I want? I guess, you know what? We'll make it around here. And then if you want more while we're talking, you just let me know and I'll slice you off a chunk. See how it is?
Well, you know how to make bread, I'll tell you.
Well, thank you.
Good.
Well, I'm sitting down today with Joyce Nelson. She was on the podcast several months ago, and we decided to do a video version here of Breaking Bread with Bjorn and talk a little bit. We're here at Bridge Street Coffee here in Oak Grove. Yeah, so Bridge Street Coffee in Oak Grove. I wanted to say Now Then, but Now Then's that way. That doesn't matter. But Joyce is somewhat of a local legend in this whole area because you've had a family campground for a number of years.
Yeah, forever.
How long has that property been in the family?
Oh, since about 1900, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your grandparents came over from overseas and bought the land, or?
They came from Sweden.
Okay.
And I don't know, I think my grandma cooked downtown Minneapolis. You know, like there were construction workers and they would rent a room in the hotels downtown. And then they'd get their meals
Okay.
with it. So my grandma was a cook.
When she lived in Sweden, was she a cook by trade, or is that something she learned over here to get by?
You know, I really don't know. I think she probably learned as she grew up.
Sure.
You know? Yeah.
Sure, that's the way it worked with a lot of the immigrants.
Yeah.
You just, even if you had a skill set, it didn't necessarily mean it was going to translate over
Yeah.
here, you know?
That's right.
So the early 1900s, they came over here, and you didn't grow up on the property. You grew up in the Twin Cities, but spent a lot of time on the property, right?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in the Twin Cities did you grow up?
Southeast Minneapolis,
Okay.
near the university.
Okay. I bet that area's changed a lot since you lived there.
Yeah, it sure has. They've lost all the elm trees.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be just covered with elms. Now there isn't an elm tree left.
Yeah. Yeah, the disease got them.
Disease got them. Yeah.
Right. Right. So you grew up in southeast Minneapolis, but then in the summers, you came up to the land quite a bit, correct?
We came every weekend.
Every weekend.
My dad helped in the spring paint the boats. That was a big thing, you know.
Right.
Every year they had to be whited up, you know.
Right. Absolutely.
And people, when they came, you know, that was a long ways out in the country, so they stayed for their whole vacation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. It's not like it is now where you can jump on the freeway and it's just a quick ride. That was
I
a
know
commitment to get up there, eh?
The other day I was coming home from the dentist and I thought, all these cars coming to the city and going, the 65 is just crowded both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it sure
The
is busy.
city is growing north, I guess.
Yeah, it's growing in every direction.
Every direction,
Just
I
keeps
guess.
sprawling out.
Yeah.
Now, when you were a kid going up there on the weekends, were they putting you to work also? Did you work on painting the boats, or what kind of chores did you do up there? Did you get a chance to enjoy the lake?
Well, I guess I was a little bit spoiled.
Oh yeah? Tell me about it.
I would go for things for my dad if he needed some screws or a paintbrush, or he'd send me to get his supplies sometimes.
Sure.
Because I was always with him, you know.
Right, right.
So that's the way I grew up.
Sure. And then if I remember when we talked, you know, you had a whole career before you even took over the resort, right?
Yeah, my aunt and uncle run it for a while, and then my husband and I, we built a house out there, so then we moved out there in, I think it was 1976.
Okay.
So we've been there ever since.
So that's when you retired from your first job, and then you took over the resort, and you've been
Yeah.
working full-time since then.
Yeah.
How old are you, Joyce? How young are you? Maybe that's the right way to ask it.
No, I'm 93.
93 and still going strong.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm still going, I guess.
But if we do the math on that 93, I mean, that means you were in your mid-40s when you took over the
Yeah,
resort and started
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
That must have been, even though you grew up there doing stuff, it still must have been quite the shift, going from the city and working the job that you had, then coming up to the lake country.
Yeah, well, I think I drove back and forth. I worked in St. Louis Park, so I had to go on a Highway 100 every morning and
Sure.
every night, you know. And when I got as far as 65 going north, I always kind of relaxed because traffic was not very heavy as you went north. Now
Right.
it's bumper to bumper
Yeah.
almost all the way out to Coon Lake. you
Yeah.
know.
So 50, almost 50 years of running the resort. Certainly, you've learned a lot over the years. But what's your favorite part of running the resort? You know what we should mention? What is the name of the resort or the campground?
Norquist Campground.
Norquist Campground.
Yeah,
And that was your maiden name, right? Yeah.
yeah, that was. I don't really know the details, but I think the family came as a whole family. And I think mostly years ago, one person would come and work their way. I suppose somebody paid their way and then they had to work it off.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know how it worked. I think my grandparents, they came as a whole family.
Okay.
And they settled right in the area where we are now.
Right. Were they farming at the time also? Was that the primary
Yeah.
thing they did? Right.
Yes, and they used to raise watermelons and muskmelons.
Oh, okay.
And they would, when they came ripe, they would ripen very quickly. So sometimes they'd have to make 2 trips a day to Minneapolis with melons
Oh, sure.
because they supplied St. Barnabas, a Swedish hospital, Deaconess Hospital with all of the melons in the morning.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so
And I suppose way, way back then they were probably using a horse and carriage, or did they have cars by that point?
no, my grandpa never drove anything but horses.
Really?
Yeah.
That must have been quite the ride going from Coon Lake into Minneapolis and St. Paul on a horse and carriage,
Yeah,
especially twice a day.
I think it took him all day. you know,
Sure.
back and forth, because he would go and stay with his 2 brothers that lived in South Minneapolis, right near the Swedish Institute.
Okay.
They had like a big home, and then they would rent the upstairs, to people that came from Sweden, I guess.
Sure, sure. Absolutely.
That's about all I know about it.
Right.
But I know my grandma was a good cook, because I can remember coming on Friday night, and the breadboard would be pulled out, and there'd be lots of nice loaves of bread, just like you're doing here.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So in your time, you've been running the resort now for 50 years. I mean, you've seen people come and go and all types of stuff. Do you have any highlights, any favorite parts of running the resort for the last 50 years? Anything that stands out?
Well, some people are real appreciative, and others, it seemed like the younger generation is a little different, except her kids. They are good kids.
Okay.
And I think they have their chores, they gotta do it, and they do it, and then there's playtime after that.
Well, like I said last time that we recorded, they got a great grandma, so that's a big part of it.
Well,
Family's very important.
that's very important, yeah.
What kind of stuff do you do? I know you're always, in the summer, you're still working at the campground, you're picking up sticks, you're keeping up on stuff. What else do you do with your free time out there when you get a chance to relax, or is it just work the whole time?
Sometimes I just sit and take it easy, like now.
Well, and I know we talked about it a little bit last time, but in the winter, when there wasn't snow on the lake, you used to ice skate around there, right?
I used to.
Yeah.
There aren't many winters, though, where you get that opportunity, because usually you get snow.
Yeah.
But I remember one year when we first moved out there, I skated all over the lake. And it was so fun, because it didn't snow very much, but it froze real smooth. And you don't get that too often. But I could skate around and then look in the windows, everybody had their Christmas tree up. It was kind of fun.
Absolutely.
But you don't get too many winters like that.
Right, right. It doesn't get cold enough quick enough now.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit of ice, and then all the snow gets on top of
Yeah,
there.
that's it.
What's the lake like this year? Is there a fair amount of snow on there?
Well, I think with all the snow that we have, I think it's going to bounce back.
Okay. It was a little low last year?
Yeah, it was really low. And, there's a lot of evaporation on the lake in July and August.
Absolutely, yeah.
It can be, I think the DNR guy told me, an inch a day if you don't get rain in between.
Right, right.
So, if it's a 95 or close to 100, there's a lot of evaporation on the lake.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's about it, I guess, but I can remember the 5-gallon pails of paint, and they would stir the paint, and the boats would be painted white. So
Were they wooden boats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stripped. I think we had 20 or 25
Wow.
boats, and then my 2 uncles, they rowed the boats for the people fishing, some of them, and they'd get $1 a day
Wow.
for rowing the boats.
That's a tough dollar to earn.
Yeah, it really was,
Did the boats eventually get motors on them? Or yeah.
At first there were no motors,
Right.
So I guess, yeah, we had a runabout, and I think we had one of the biggest motors. It was a Mercury with a power prop on it,
Okay.
and I think it was 45 or 50 horse.
Wow.
And that was the biggest motor on
Yeah,
the lake.
that's pretty big for back then.
Yeah. Yeah, so now the 45, 50 is a small motor.
Yeah, that is. It's kind of where you start.
Yeah.
Now, in the winter, did you ever get out and do any ice fishing or?
Oh, yeah. We did pretty good ice fishing right out from our house. The lake runs shallow, but then all of a sudden it drops off.
Okay.
It goes from like maybe 10 feet down to maybe 15, 20 feet. And if you get right on that drop off, you always caught crappies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now if somebody's watching and fishes on that lake, if they gave you a few bucks, would you go out and show them where that spot is?
Well, I can't really tell you just exactly.
Would you say you ice fished more or fished in a boat more?
Well, I think we fished quite a bit in the winter because we had more time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
And the fish always bit good in the winter.
Right.
I suppose they were hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one part when you live on the lake or run a campground or a resort, you don't necessarily get to enjoy all those summer activities because you're busy.
No, because you're waiting on other people.
Right,
You know?
right. How many people, how many spots do you have at your campground?
Well, I think we have permit for about 50.
Okay,
So that's water and electric.
okay. Well, and last time we sat down, it was right at the end of the season. If memory serves me right, like that, the weekend or the weekend after is when you were shutting down. What are your time periods of operation? Like, is it Memorial Day through Labor Day or
1st of May to the 1st of October.
1st of May to 1st of October?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because after 1st of October, you can't really count on having, water, because it can freeze at any.
Right.
It doesn't freeze solid, but you know what's coming.
Right.
Yeah, so we always try and blow what we call blow out the lines.
Right, yeah.
1st of October.
Okay.
Sometimes we used to stay open to the 1st of November, but then sometimes you'd be in snowflakes, and that's not too much fun when you're shutting off water.
No, that's pretty miserable.
Yeah. So we do it on the 1st of October.
So the 1st of May is when you open up. On a year like this with all the snow, do you think all the snow is going to be gone before the 1st of May?
I'm wondering. I hope it's gone by then, but...
Well, you spent 93 winters now in Minnesota. Do you have any advice for getting through the Minnesota winter?
Maybe you should go south for the
Yeah,
winter.
that's... when we were recording last time, you kind of showed up to Amanda's camper in style on the Gator. What do you do with the Gator in the winter? Do you run that around at all, or?
No, I don't run it because it doesn't go very good in snow.
Okay.
So it's sitting in the garage right now.
Okay.
Because I don't like to get it stuck.
Sure. But are you getting antsy to get out on it and drive around a little bit? Yeah. Now, you said your grandmother was a great cook, and of course, being a Swedish immigrant, did she ever cook you lutefisk?
Oh, yeah, we had it every Christmas.
Oh, yeah? Have you had it recently?
I didn't have any this year.
Okay.
It's the first year that I never had any.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But I should have gone down to Marine on the St. Croix, and they have a good lutefisk dinner. But then, I don't know, I got busy. Oh, I did have it at Mount Olivet Lutheran.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah, and that was a very good meal.
We went for the first time.
Lutefisk and Swedish meatballs.
Oh, that's... Half of that sounds good.
The meatballs.
We went this December up to Brainerd to a place and had a lutefisk dinner. And it's the first time I've had lutefisk in, well, it was about 35 years. I had it when I was a little kid and never touched it again. And the meal was excellent. The lutefisk was even cooked good. They had the lutefisk and potato sausage and Swedish meatballs and rutabagas and lefse. I mean, they had lefse that was the size of a hubcap. It was delicious. Everything was really good. The lutefisk even was cooked really good. And we'll go back next year and I'll have everything but the lutefisk. So
Everything but the lutefisk. You didn't care for that.
you know, it's just the taste didn't bug me. It was just the texture. It just,
Yeah.
I couldn't, I had a few bites of it and it was hard to swallow after a while. But
Yeah.
it was still, I know how it should be cooked and it was cooked very nice, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, that's what a lot of younger people say.
Yeah.
I remember I was invited up to Martin Lake to some friends, and they asked me, could you bring the lutefisk? Sure, I brought it, but it went over like a lead balloon. I ate it, and the host ate it, but I think he ate it to be polite.
Well, as long as somebody tried it, I guess.
So, needless to say, the next year, I wasn't asked to bring any lutefisk. I think we had roast beef.
Well, hey, that's nothing wrong with that. It's actually really interesting when I was looking into different lutefisk feeds around the state, because of course in November and December they're all over the place.
Yeah.
And considerably more lutefisk is eaten in Minnesota and Wisconsin than in all of Sweden and Norway. They actually don't, not as much gets eaten over there, but it's still very big here, and hence, you know, a lot of it's actually produced right in St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul. There's a place that makes it every year, and so the Swedes and Norwegians here still eat it, but back across the sea, they don't eat it as much. I guess they wisened up over the years. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's like we say, I suppose we talk so much about lutefisk that we think we're eating it, maybe, and we aren't.
Yeah.
I noticed, like, people, like at Mount Olivet that day, a lot of the younger people put some on their plate, but it's there when they leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't. When we went, I got just a little chunk about like that, and I said, that's enough. And the guy wanted to give me more. He was more than happy. No, that's all we need. I got plenty of meatballs here.
Yeah.
So you just had a birthday, so you're 94 now. Do you have any advice, any health advice or life advice for making it to 94? Certainly you did something right.
Well, I never drank or smoked, so I guess I led a pretty, some people call it a dull life, but I think it was a healthy life.
Yeah.
You know? And I've worked all my life, you know, and then worked in the campgrounds on the weekends, so I guess we know what work's all about.
Right.
Us older people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like my grandparents, I was thinking the other day, in the fall they took up ice, they had an ice house, and then the wood, you know, they cut wood and save all the sawdust and put the sawdust over the ice. And that kept the ice all summer.
Sure. Did they sell that ice then?
Yeah, then
Okay.
they sold the ice all around well, you know, we didn't have refrigerators till about 1930 or so.
Right.
So I guess that's the way they lived, you know. They cut the wood and then they saved the sawdust to put on top of the ice that they took in.
Right.
That was a lot of work taking in ice.
Yeah, well, those chunks of ice get very heavy.
I don't know how they did it.
Did they sell the firewood too, or was that just for keeping their house warm in the winter?
Well, at first that's all they had was the wood. But after a while then they got coal. And I guess, bought that from a coal company.
Okay.
So, you know, I suppose wood was plentiful, and that's what they sawed in the fall, you know. So they kept busy all year, I guess that's what it amounts to, you
Right.
know.
Now you didn't have any brothers or sisters, right? You were an only kid. Did you have any cousins? Because you said you had some uncles.
I had one cousin.
Okay. What were they up at the campground with you?
No, they lived at Detroit Lakes,
Oh, okay.
and she's passed away now. So
Okay.
I guess I'm the last of the litter.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I guess so many families, they multiply so quickly. Seemed like we died out.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's the way it goes,
Yeah.
right?
I guess so, yeah.
So, you know, spending all of your life on the lake, you know, going there as a kid, and then, you know, the last 50 years there running the resort, can you even begin to explain how much things have changed around there?
They've changed an awful lot, yeah. You know, people don't want to work like they used to. You know, they want to come and relax, and that's the relaxation.
Right.
You know? And go out fishing or maybe water skiing. The young people like to water ski and all that, you know.
Did you ever water ski?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I've never been able to.
Haven't you?
No,
It's a trick to get up.
that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Once you get up, it goes good. But getting up is a little tricky.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I should do it. I mean, the sport was invented in Minnesota, for heaven's sakes,
Yeah.
but I've never been able to figure it out.
Well, it's a trick to getting up, you know.
How about right around the lake itself? I mean, now there's homes and other campgrounds and stuff. You must remember it when there was not much anything around there.
Yeah, they were just little bitty cabins that were up, you know, and now they're putting up $1 million houses, you know. And I guess that's the way the economy is going. You
Yeah.
know? People want to live on a lake and be kind of close to the city, you know. So I guess the lots on Coon Lake have gone kind of crazy, but people pay it, so
Right,
that's the way it is.
right.
Yeah. I don't know where it's going to stop. Well, I know my grandparents, they knew the Nelsons that owned Lutzen Resort,
Oh, sure.
and I think they've sold it out now, but she used to have a sister that lived down on Coon Lake,
Okay.
and they would come down, and my grandma and Mrs. Nelson, they were schoolmates in Sweden.
Okay.
So they got off the ship at Lutzen. He told me the story, and they had a bad storm that night, so they took the boughs out of the evergreen trees and made a bed and slept
Oh, wow.
under the, you know, the greenery.
Yeah.
So that was their humble beginnings.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they made it work back
Yeah.
then. You know, they found a way
Yeah,
to
and
make it work.
I think years ago it was, their big thing was in the fall, it was hunting.
Sure.
Now it's skiing. And that's big business. I think they sold out to some big outfit in California.
Yep, I believe it's a corporate-owned thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
But their humble beginnings were cutting the branches
Yeah.
and sleeping under the, I suppose it's thunder and lightning,
Yeah.
you know.
Sounds kind of nice in a way, though.
So anyway, that's about all I know.
So we're just, you know, we're within about a month of the resort opening. or the campground opening up here. So what does the preparation for that look like? Do you have anything that you have to get in order, or is it just kind of waiting for that day?
The main thing is that we get the water on by the 1st of May. And that's not a big job. I mean, it is if you don't blow out the lines right, because then you can have breaks. But we've been pretty lucky. I guess we're doing it right.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we got to protect that. Well, Joyce, this has been a really fun conversation again. I learned a lot from you again, and it's just an absolute pleasure. So we'll kind of wrap this up, but we'll sit around and eat a little bit more of this delicious bread and snacks for a couple minutes, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, this was good bread. I enjoy it.
Awesome.
It isn't very often you get homemade bread anymore.
Well, and you get to bring this home with you, so you can enjoy it for the rest of the week.
Oh no, you have that for lunch or dinner.
I've got 3 loaves of it in my freezer. Oh, yeah. So that's for you. So
you must have been baking all night.
All day, all night, every day. So, all right. Excellent.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
I remember one time we were just about ready to have dinner, and the telephone rang, and it was Sweden calling. So, of course, the lutefisk got kind of on the back burner. Well, if you don't get it off this in time, you got nothing but kind of soup.
Well, if next winter we might have to pick you up and go out for lutefisk somewhere.
Yeah,